So this is kind of a unique video. I think to memory, this is actually the first video that I've actually had to go back and rewrite. I originally had a much bigger script planned out for this topic, but it was like 10 minutes long and I didn't really like it. So I'm going to try to make a lot of the same points I made in that script, but a bit more condensed in this one. Back in February, I had reported on the fact that the Fallout Frontier rework project was actually closing their doors, citing that it was just too much work that needed to be done and there were just too few people to work on it. The video did recently well for my channel, but around March, the algorithm scooped it up and just rocketed it into the stratosphere, starting from what was about 2,000 views all the way up to about 100,000 views. More than that, actually. A jump I'm no stranger to, as it's happened a couple times for my channel, but I'm not one to look a gift horse in the mouth when it comes to views. In the video, I mentioned offhandedly that I took issue with the fact that a group known as the Bleeders, a tribe native to Portland that worshipped blood and partook in bloodletting rituals, were eradicated when two of their members sexually assaulted somebody who just so happened to have syphilis. And, you know, their blood-sharing practices kind of spread the STD around and they all ended up, dying. Primary issue I took with this was the fact that the disease was referred to specifically as syphilis instead of, some made-up in-universe thing. I felt that it was a bit crass when stacked beside things such as, the Trochili bestiality, the Deathclaw bestiality, Mai's weird, sarcastic pedophile commentary, America's implied sexual slavery, Claudius and his weird incestuous desires towards his sister AJ, and a trove of other just completely degenerate shit that was put in there to seem realistic and edgy. Do these things happen in the real world? Yeah. Did they need to be included? I don't think so, and based on a lot of other people's reaction to these points, they also don't think so. More than a few people throughout the video thought it was odd that I was having such an issue with the disease being called syphilis, as a lot of the other topics that I just mentioned were also in the game and are objectively worse by comparison. This commentary was made in varying degrees of hostility, but after a good 20-30 minutes of crying, I picked myself up, put my big boy pants on, and decided I wanted to talk about it. So for this video, I want to do just that. I wanted to talk about why I thought this was perhaps a step too far in this very specific instance, and talk about my own mistakes around this little micro drama for my community. To start off, because some people seem to be under the delusion that I had no problem with the other issues that I, again, already covered about the mod, I do. Maybe I didn't list out each and every issue I had with the mod in the previous video, but this was far from the first time I've torn into the frontier. In fact, some would say that's what put me on the map. It's a weak whataboutism argument that holds no real substantive point, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about it. Instead, I want to talk about the fair point that a lot of people brought up, that it was odd to have an issue with this when it actually fits pretty well into Fallout's tone, and it's something that previous games have also included. And to this argument, I can definitely concede. In the video, I had made the claim that if it was referred to by something other than syphilis, I wouldn't really had a problem with it. It turns out, though, it's not called syphilis at all. When speaking with the last Pathfinder, who's the last remaining member of the Bleeders, he actually tells you straight up what the tribe actually called this disease. It should be on screen right here, right now. I have no idea how to pronounce it, but it sure as hell doesn't spell syphilis. Of course, I can barely read, so who knows at this point. This is probably the biggest L I've taken as a content creator thus far, because my whole point in the video was that if it was called something other than syphilis, I wouldn't have had an issue with it. When in reality, it was actually called something other than syphilis. It's embarrassing. I don't know how I missed it either, as when I streamed this during my NCR playthrough of the game, I actually completed this quest line, spoke to the last Pathfinder, and I even read over the Bleeders Frontier wiki page for research on this video. So yeah, I have no real excuse for that. I don't know how I could have overlooked it, seeing as how I played through that section and went back to the main page, reading it for research on the last video. So, yeah, thanks for unintentionally keeping me honest, you guys. Good looking out. Fucking gamer move. Of course, at the same time, I've yet to see any comments correcting me on this point, so at the very least, it's good to know that I wasn't the only one who overlooked this little factoid about this cursed game. Knowing what I know now, I don't have the same opinion about the demise of the Bleeders that I shared back in that video. My issues with the name, I was mistaken on the name, thus my complaint is null. There were also a few people who drew comparisons to other real-world diseases in Fallout being mentioned, such as cancer in New Vegas in Fallout 4, Ebola in Fallout 1 and 2, influenza, rabies, etc., etc. In all honesty, actually, cancer was the only thing I saw being brought up. I just wanted to mention those other things because I actually didn't know that they were mentioned in the canon. I also looked back and noticed that syphilis is actually mentioned by name in Fallouts 2, 3, 4, and apparently Tactics. Well, I mean, at least cancer was the only thing that I remembered being mentioned. If you commented and mentioned something other than cancer, I'm sorry I forgot about you. That video had a lot of comments. Looking back on the whole thing, I'm not really sure why it struck me as hard as it did, but if I had to guess, I'd probably say that it was more a compounding issue. When you have a story filled with so much degeneracy, bad writing, poor balancing, and just a slew of other negative aspects, it can make even the most mundane things seem way worse by association. Perhaps I was wrong for not being able to disconnect that aspect of the frontier from the Bleeders questline. However, I fundamentally believe that you have to take every aspect of a work into account when assessing its true value. And unfortunately, at times, that means that the good and the bad mix with each other, and unfortunately carry on the negatives and the positives of each other. When there's enough negatives, it drowns out the positives. But yeah, I just wanted to clear the things up about that matter since I didn't really make my point very clear on the Frontier video, and because I was lacking when it came to proper research. I don't really feel like there was a whole lot of pressure to say something, but I felt like I probably should, seeing as how, well, I didn't do a very good job last time. So I wanted to clear the air. For now, though, I thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe and stuff, and I'll see you all out there in the wasteland.